So, over this weekend, a lot of news came out as far as professional wrestling goes. Some has been, some of it's been news that, some very notable YouTube, YWC, YouTube wrestling community analysis and fellow fans have been wanting to talk about, especially after the reactions that certain talent have been getting, as well as the fact that there's a relaunch happening for a promotion that actually, just finished, I guess, its second reboot or something you can find here on YouTube. As well, it's basically a promotion that, started back in the late 90s, early 2000s. And then, on top of that, basically, there was a match that happened this past Saturday night in Atlantic City, New Jersey. It was on Fight TV. It was part of a event called Fight Club. And of course, what I'm talking about in all three categories is, there were some people, most notably today, Alyx Hicks, just Alyx, formerly Dalyxman. He did two subjects today in one video, which I'm going to respond to here. One of them was on, of course, Cody Rhodes finally turning heel, and how that's probably sooner than later, and how it's going to, be when it, basically what the outcome is going to be when it's all said and done. The other topic he talked about was Tessa Blanchard, and the fact that she has signed on to not only be the face, apparently, of WOW, Women's of Wrestling's relaunch, which is supposed to officially begin in the fall of next year, but she's also the casting director. And this announcement, along with the fact that AJ Mendez, formerly AJ Lee in WWE, is going to be executive producer and color commentator, the announcement about Tessa has really got a lot of people talking. And let's just say it's not good. As a matter of fact, I was just reading something courtesy of Chelsea Green, the wife, fiance of Matt Cardona, formerly Zack Ryder. And yeah, this is not a good, from what a lot of people are saying, this is not a good move by WOW. Not just, signing her on, as a on-screen talent, but making her the executive casting director. In other words, the one that gets the final say in who gets brought on. So there's that. And then the match that happened this past Saturday night in Atlantic City, New Jersey, at the Showboat, at the showroom, was Fight Club. It was GCW, Game Changer Wrestling Fight Club. And that's what I want to talk about here. All that. So let's talk about, first of all, let's start off by talking about Cody Rhodes and, what Alyx had to say about it. Now, Alyx brought up some good points. And matter of fact, I did a video recently where I basically said in the title, Tony Khan, the time is now to pull the trigger. You have no other choice now. I mean, the fact that the fans are reacting the way they are, yeah, you have no other choice. But you have no other choice, I should say, but to pull the trigger on a Cody Rhodes heel turn. Now, the one thing that Alyx brought up here was what Cody said in an interview recently. Cody said that basically he's not going to turn heel. He's not going to be a bad guy. He's not going to do this or that. That he's now a father and he wants to be a good example for his daughter. And a lot of people read this. From Alyx to Solomonster, OTR Central, you name it. And a lot of people, those that I just mentioned, and many others as well that read it, are all in agreement that when you read the way he paraphrases what he says in this interview, the way he, says this and says that about certain things, when it relates to not being a heel, it pretty much, in their opinion, from their point of view, gives off the vibes that, yeah, Cody's turning heel. It's just a matter of how it's done and what kind of heel that we get. And there was various examples that Alyx gave. One of them was Injustice Superman. You see, in case you don't know, in case you haven't played the Injustice games or read the Injustice comics based on the games, or even got yourself psyched up for the movie that's coming out in a couple of weeks, basically, Injustice Superman is an alternate version of Superman who goes completely nuts. He goes completely cray-cray with power. But the way he goes cray-cray with power is he believes what he's doing is right. That what he's doing is justified. That it's, the law. That basically it's to protect those from experiencing what he had experienced personally. Not just the loss of Lois, but the loss of the unborn child, and basically the destruction of Metropolis. So that's basically what the Injustice version of Superman is. To the point that he feels like he's so righteous in his decision making that he will sacrifice those that try to talk some sense into him and make him realize that, we see where you're coming from, but you're going a little too far, kind of deal. You want a good example of that? There's a cutscene in the first Injustice game where he basically kills Shazam. Yeah, he basically seals Shazam's mouth shut to the point that he suffocates him to death, is what he did. He suffocates him to death. And that's basically kind of an example of what Alyx is looking at with Cody right here. He's looking at him in the veins of a Injustice Superman type guy, a Highlander type guy. He's looking at him in the way that when he does turn heel, it's a heel turn and a heel character that may eclipse Roman Reigns' Tribal Chief character. And I know one thing, OTR Central, who probably watched that, is probably thinking, that's not going to happen. But, again, it's Alyx's opinion on how he sees it potentially, going down. And he might be right. He might be right. I mean, everybody said that if Roman Reigns goes heel, it's going to be money. It's going to be a success. It's going to do great things for WWE depending on what brand he's on. And guess what? It's done everything people pretty much have said it would do, or at least to an extent. It's elevated not only the show he's on, which is SmackDown, to the point that Fox is like, yeah, you try to put him on Raw, you got another thing coming. But it's also elevated his cousins, Jimmy and Jay. It's elevated to an extent, and I think we all see it coming, Naomi, his cousin-in-law, if you will. It's elevating all of his opponents that he's faced, some that you wouldn't expect to get an elevation to that kind of a level. So it's doing a lot of things. It's doing a lot of things for WWE in a positive, outlook when it comes to things like SmackDown and, the storylines Roman gets involved in stuff, as well as you saw what it did for him, it did for Raw when he showed up. So obviously, they realized, what a lot of people pointed out, that if they just, pull the trigger on letting Roman become a heel, magic will happen, and it has. And what Alyx is getting at is the way he sees Cody Rhodes potentially going down that route is it will eclipse Roman to an extent. And what he means by eclipse it is that Cody will portray himself in that role of an injustice, basically what I'm trying to say is the way Alyx looks at it is basically Cody will position himself in that role of an Injustice like Superman character or Highlander like character where he believes he's in the right, where he believes what he's doing is justified, what he believes what he's doing is for the protection of those he loves and the world, not realizing that what he's doing is wrong, that what he's doing is evil, it's heelish, it's not what it's not what he preaches he stands for, but it's the exact opposite. And the way Alyx put it out here is the reason he believes it's going to probably eclipse Roman's Tribal Chief deal is due to the fact that, Cody will be portraying a character that feels so righteous that even if Brandy or Arn Anderson says, hey, what you're doing is not right, it's wrong, he's going to be so far gone in his belief of, you're hallucinating, Brandy. You're hallucinating on. What I am doing is right. What I am doing is justified. It is for the right of the company. That basically, Alyx feels that it's going to get to that Cody's heel turn is going to be in that, vicinity of he's going to be so far out there that he's not going to realize that what he is doing, to justify, hey, I am a good guy, I am a babyface. But in actuality, what he's doing is he's showing he's a bad guy. He's a heel, but he doesn't see that. He's blinded. He's too blinded to the truth. And they even, and Alyx, I should say, Alyx even sees the fact that Cody could, have this blindness to not realizing what he really and truly is, or what he is truly doing, or truly what he is doing, I should say. To the point that he could use his power to rescind his world title shot. And yeah, Cody said in the interview he's not going to do that because he believes, legitimately that that's not the right thing to do. But again, the interview gives off the vibes that he is going to do this. He is going to do it. He's just trying to play us. He's trying to get us not to be unsurprised when it happens, but to be shocked. That's the mindset he has right now. And part of what Alyx is saying is the way Cody would be portrayed in this manner is that he would be portrayed in this manner so much that he would rescind his title shot that he gave up when he lost to Jericho to get the title away from Hangman, because in his blind ambition of, hey, what I'm doing is right, what I'm doing is for the greater good, in his blind ambition, he believes him being the AEW World Champion is what's going to help AEW be the #1 wrestling promotion of all time, if not in the world, and would put maybe the competition like WWE, in a sense, even though they're partners with them, Impact, NWA, AAA, all of them, out to pasture. So yeah, Alyx just basically feels, in his opinion, that that's probably what we're going to get. Now, to respond to that, do I think it's going to eclipse Roman Reigns' Tribal Chief run right now? I'd have to say no. I mean, it'll probably be on the same level, and depending on how they tell the stories, with this heel turn, it could probably, at various weeks surpass Roman Reigns, but no, I don't think it's going to surpass it. I think it's going to mostly be on that same level to where, people watch SmackDown to see what Roman Reigns is going to do, what storyline he's going to be involved in, who his opponents are going to be, how close he'll get to losing or retaining the Universal Championship. And that's all because of what Roman is doing now with this Tribal Chief, role, gimmick and storyline that he's currently in. And the same could be said for Cody. When Cody gets to that point, as Alyx is looking at, and I'm sure others would agree with him on that, then yeah, people are going to tune into AEW probably more so than normal to see exactly what Cody's going to do. What steps is he going to take next that, he believes are justified in doing what he believes is the right thing, is for the greater good, but not realizing it's the exact opposite. So honestly, I don't think it's going to surpass Roman. I think it'll tie it. I think they'll be on the same level, but they might share like victories every other week. Like 1 week, Roman will, be the top heel on what he, depending on what he's involved in, and then maybe another week or 2 weeks later, Cody will do it. So honestly though, I think Alyx does have a point. I mean, we all see it coming. I mean, the fans want to boo him, and yet he's fighting it, and he can't be fighting it because it's gonna basically hurt him in the long run. I mean, look at Roman Reigns. Roman Reigns had the sense to say, look, if I'm coming back, let me be a heel. Let me be a bad guy. And let me embrace it. Let me run with it. And if it don't work, fine. Put me back to the big dog. But guess what? It's succeeded. It's working. And that's why, everything is at that elevated level that it is right now. And, that's what Cody has to do. Cody has to stop fighting it and basically, go to Tony Khan, or Tony Khan, I should say, should stop fighting it, should stop having Cody fight it, take Cody aside and say, listen to these people from last week, listen to them the previous week, listen to them right now. Do you think they're going to cheer you? No. You embrace being a heel, and you do it in a way that you feel is going to work. And if And if that happens, which it inevitably will, probably sooner than we think, if that happens, then I think what Alyx and others believe is probably going to be the direction we get. We're going to get an Injustice Superman Highland-like kind of Cody Rhodes that is so blinded by his ambitions to do what is the greater good for AEW and those involved, the Nightmare Family and all that, that he doesn't realize what he's doing is the exact opposite. So, yeah, I do agree with Alyx and others that feel that way. The only question is, when is it going to happen? I'm assuming it's going to happen at Full Gear. If we get Black and Rhodes 3, then you know as well as I do it's going to be a double turn, and that's going to be the catalyst, the foundation to, begin that transition for Cody to be that Highlander Injustice Superman type heel that believes what he's doing is for the greater good, but it's the exact opposite. So, honestly, that's when I think it's going to happen. Now, let's get on to Tessa Blanchard. Yeah, Tessa Blanchard was in the news as well as WOW, Women's of Wrestling Superheroes. Now, like I said at the beginning, WOW recently did have a bit of a revival, which Tessa was part of. Not as much as, she is going to be now, but she was part of it. And she was in the main event scene there. However, it didn't last too long. This was at a time when she was positioned on top of Impact as one of the top stars, if not their champion. And she was also participating in other promotions as well, one of them being WOW. And one of the things about WOW Women's of Wrestling is they tape a lot of their shows in advance. And I mean way in advance. The reason they do this is because they know that whatever women's wrestlers they have on the roster, to be part of the show, be part of the promotion, they know that these ladies have other commitments elsewhere. So they need to not only get them, when they can, but they need to film the episodes when they can, so they can let these women go off and fill out the commitments that they've already committed to. A good example of that is Lucha Underground. When Lucha Underground did that, they filmed for several months, and some of these episodes didn't show up until almost a year later or half a year later. But it was done to allow a lot of these luchadors and a lot of these American athletes, wrestlers, if you will, to go off and do their own thing, fulfill the commitments with other promotions. And that's what you're getting here with WOW again. WOW is going to be relaunching for a third time. It's going to have a bigger platform. From what we understand, the word is it's going to debut in the fall of 2022. It's going to be in syndication, distributed by Viacom/CBS, which also means that it will probably, these new episodes, will probably be seen on Paramount Plus. So be on the lookout for that when that happens. Not saying that's confirmed or anything, but I think that's the logical, place for them to show up at after a new episode debuts. Suddenly, jump over to Paramount Plus to be streamed at any time. Also, there's an announcement that they are going to get their own wrestling channel on Pluto TV, which is a great service, completely free. From what I understand, most of the time completely free. It's got a lot of different channels dedicated to different categories, like, cartoons, classics from the past, music, movies, you name it. It's got all. So, basically, WOW's going to, as well as it's got a few wrestling channels, it's got one for Impact Wrestling, and it's got one for regular wrestling, like independent wrestling and all that. So WOW basically is gonna have their own channel as well, showing past episodes of superhero. WOW superheroes. From, I would assume, all the way back in the late '90s, early 2000s, and then up to the more recent. Hold on. Spam call. one thing about these phones nowadays, especially depending on your service, is now they're adding in the spam word to kind of prevent any like scams or anything like that. But anyway, like I was saying, WoW is going to apparently have their own channel on Pluto TV, where basically they'll be able to see episodes of WoW. I'm assuming all the way back from the late 90s, early 2000s, and up to the more recent revival that they had that you can find here on YouTube, I believe. It's being head up by, well, I guess the owner of the Lakers, or one of the co-owners of the Lakers, as well as it's also being head up in conjunction with that owner, with the original person behind Glow and the original WoW Women's of Wrestling promotion. You know, they're all coming together, and again, they got AJ Mendez in there as executive producer, as well as color commentator, and they have Tessa Blanchard as executive casting director, and basically the face of the promotion. And here's the thing, when this got announced, yeah, it got a lot of people's attention. First of all, they're happy to see the AJs back into the wrestling business, associating with women of wrestling. But they were kind of surprised that Tessa was signed on by Women's of Wrestling, not just to be the face of their company, essentially the Roman Reigns, if you will, their Kenny Omega of the company, but they were kind of surprised by the fact that she was given the title behind the scenes of executive casting director. And the reason this got a lot of attention when it was announced, was due to the fact that basically Tessa Blanchard is, I'll put it this way, she is poisonous when it comes to wrestling right now, especially women's wrestling. The reason she is poisonous is because of the reputation she's basically built up for herself, and it's not a very good reputation. Basically, long story short, in the past several years, if not even a decade, if you will, she has basically built up a reputation for herself that, depending on, where she would go, it would not be a good environment to be, involved in, because it would be very awkward and very, unsettling. Long story short, she, has been known to be very racist, very bullyish, if you will. She's been known to call certain, women of color or race, names. She's been known to, go as far as to spit in one of their faces, as well as call them a derogatory name while they were touring in Japan. And there's a lot of ladies that were part of that tour that could back that up. So yeah, Tessa is very avoidable, if you will. She's very avoidable when it comes to wrestling. To the point that WWE and AEW, WWE and AEW, and even NWA, if you will, don't want nothing to do with her. They want nothing to do with her. Not even AAA wants to touch her. Nobody wants anything, majorly to do with her. And why? Because of what she's done, of what she's said, and the fact that she's pretty much not come out and publicly apologized for her actions. A lot of people say that the best first step for Tessa to take to kind of regain, if possible, the trust of the entire women's wrestling industry is to go out and do an apology tour. Go out, apologize for her actions, admit she was wrong, agree to take some kind of therapy or counseling, and then when she feels she's ready to come back and really atone for what she's done, then maybe she'll be accepted with open arms, because hey, she's been gone for a while, she did the apology, she took therapy, she did all this that was needed to make herself better, and now hopefully it's going to work. But she's yet to do that. I mean, all she's ever done is come out and deny any of the accusations put against her. And it's gotten to the point that, like I said, nobody wants anything to do with her. Not WWE, not NWA, not AEW, not Impact, of course, AAA, New Japan, Shimmer, nobody. Shine, nobody. Nobody wants nothing to do with her. So, what happens? Well, she's out of the picture for a while. And then all of a sudden, she gets a phone call. And she's brought on to be part of WOW. The new revival of WOW. Which, like I said, is going to debut next fall. And not only is she brought on to be the face of the promotion, but she's brought on to be the executive casting director. Now, it's one thing to bring her on and say, hey, she's going to be one of our top faces of the promotion from an in-ring standpoint. Okay, fine. But again, because of her reputation, when it was announced she was also going to be the executive casting director, that did not sit well with a lot of people. Because a lot of people are right now assuming, and rightfully so, that she's going to cast certain people a certain way so that she can look superior. She can be the be-all, end-all, if you will, when it comes to the promotion. Like, basically she could be the unstoppable force that nobody can beat. Like, let's say they do the traditional WOW, LPWA, Glow, scenario where you have the good girls and the bad girls, and you have this ultimate bad girl boss, and Tessa's the ultimate good girl hero. What they're worried about is she's going to paint herself to the point, or not paint herself, but basically cast herself to the point that she'll basically she'll make it look like nothing by taking out the big boss. That's what they worry about. And again, this has not gone over with a lot of people. It's not gone over very well. I mean, Chelsea Green recently just chimed in and said that when they were at the All In event, which was basically the precursor, the catalyst, the one that laid down the foundation, I should say, for future AEW All Out events that came later on. Chelsea basically stated that Tessa, in an attempt to make herself look better, at the event, brought her Knockouts Championship. Yeah, she brought her Knockouts Championship to the event. Even though she didn't have to defend it, she brought it because she wanted to make herself look better. And that didn't sit well with anybody. Thankfully, it looks like, I think maybe her father talked some sense into her and said, don't wear that out there because nobody's going to really like it. So, yeah, apparently the reputation, that negative reputation that she's kept building for a while in the past several years, if not, recently, has continued on, as recent as the All In event. Because unless the promotion agrees that, okay, our title can be on the line during that event, I'll agree. Tessa had no reason to bring the Knockouts Championship with her because she wasn't defending it in that Fatal 4-Way. She wasn't. So yeah, it's decisions like that that don't make her look really good in the eyes of a lot of folks. It doesn't. It really doesn't. And then, on top of that, with her signing, or should I say on top of her signing, I should say, on with women's wrestling as, not just the face of the promotion, but basically the executive casting director. On top of that, and this is not a good look for Tessa. This is not a good look for WOW. It's not a good way to start off or get people excited, for your promotion, or for your product, or whatever you want to call it. But basically, they released within 24 hours of her being announced as the face of the promotion, being announced as executive casting director, they released, along with her, are you ready for this? A Tessa Blanchard t-shirt that says nuclear on top. Yeah, a Tessa Blanchard t-shirt that says nuclear on top, with a nuclear explosion in the background. And for a lot of fans and people on the in the business to see that, yeah, I don't know what they're thinking. I don't know why WOW would do this, or why Tessa would do this, knowing the reputation she has. But that's not a good way to start off on the right foot. If anything, it's a good way to start off on the wrong foot. Because again, again, one can understand that you want to make sure people, gravitate towards your product right away. Like they start talking about your product right away. And I'll admit, going in this direction is one way of doing it. It's one way of doing it because you're getting a lot of people talking about your product, but it's not in a positive way. It's a negative way because of the reputation this woman has. And all Tessa has to do is just go out on an apology tour, go to promotion and just apologize to the ladies. Say, I'm sorry for screwing up. I was wrong. I let my ego get the best of me, because I believed, this is honestly, here's what she should do. Bit of suggestion, but here's what she should do. She should go out, do the apology tour, and one of the things she needs to say is that she let her ego, she should apologize for, is she let her ego get the best of her because she believed that since she was the daughter of a horseman, that being Tessa Blanchard, that she could have everything handed to her, on a silver platter, and that she could get away with anything without any consequences. Once she does that, once she apologizes for that, which I think is one of the main reasons why she's built up the reputation she's had, because she's had this mind thought of, hey, I'm Tessa Blanchard's daughter. I'm the daughter of a horseman. I can do what I want, say what I want, get what I want, and no consequences. And apparently reality has said otherwise. So yeah, if I'm Tessa Blanchard, before WoW starts up, I take a break away from them. I say, AJ, Jenny, I think that's the name of the owner of the Lakers, one of the owners. I tell him, look, I want to take a break a little bit. I want to go on tour. I want to apologize for my actions so that, I can start off here on WoW with a clean slate with these ladies and move forward. And that's all she has to do. Just take a break. Step away from WoW, if you will. Semi-retire for a bit from wrestling. Go on the apology tour. Sincerely mean what you're going to say. Acknowledge that maybe because you believed you were the daughter of a horseman, you could do what you want, get what you want, and there wouldn't be no consequences, but you were wrong. Do that. And to me, that would be the first process in regaining the trust of a lot of ladies. And honestly, if she does that, to me, it'll be a positive win for not just her, but for WoW. It'll be a positive win for her and WoW in the end if she does that. But she has yet to do it. In fact, if she would have done this a long time ago, it would be a better, her signing with WoW would be better well received than what it is, if at all. But yeah, Tessa is one of those individuals that basically, like I said, nobody wants anything to do with her. I mean, if you want to see her on a WWE platform, guess what? Go to the Peacock, go to the Mae Young Classics, and I think it was like a couple of years ago, she was like in the first round of the Classics. And she lost. Why? Because obviously they knew that she kept going on, or kept advancing in the tournament, it wouldn't look good for them, maybe. Who knows? But yeah, if you want to see her in anything WWE related, Mae Young Classic, anything AEW related, All In, and anything Impact related, just tune into Impact Plus and Fight, and you'll see it there. But yeah, right now, this is not a good move by WoW. I mean, here's the thing, I think it would have been one thing if you just said, hey, we signed her on to be an on-screen talent, and that would be okay, I guess, because, even though she has a reputation and everything, at least, she wouldn't, be, having as much power as, she has right now, or being promoted as, the face of your company. But because they didn't just sign her on as a regular talent and just decide basically on who else they could bring in to be the face of the company, be the, the John Cena, the Kenny Omega, the Roman Reigns, because they didn't do that and they decided to make Tessa, make Tessa that poster child, if you will, as well as give her the Power Executive Casting Director. Yeah, this isn't a good move. This is not a good move. If I'm WoW, it's not a good move. It's not a good way to get off on the right foot. In fact, it's, like I said, it's the best way to get off on the wrong foot. It really is. But yeah, if I'm Tessa, I step away from WoW for right now, and I go on an apology tour, And once I do that, apologize for my actions, maybe acknowledge, as I said, that she probably got a big head because she thought she was the daughter of a horseman. She can do what she wants. If she does that, and then maybe does a little bit of therapy, and whatever the case may be, that might be like the first step, I should say, as I mentioned, for her to regain the trust of people. But that's up to her, and that's up to WoW. But if I'm WoW right now, and I don't want no negative press on me, within the past 72 hours or so of announcing my revival on a big platform, and I have AJ Mendez working with us, then if I'm WoW and I'm Tessa, I take that t-shirt down right now off Pro Wrestling Tees. If I'm Pro Wrestling Tees, I take that t-shirt off right now. I mean, yeah, it'll make you some money, but come on, seriously. That's not a good sign for you either. PWT, that's not a good sign for you guys either. So if I'm you, take that t-shirt down, because that's the last thing you need is bad press. And that's the honest truth. But anyway, like I said, it's up to Tessa and it's up to WoW and Pro Wrestling Tees. If I'm you, I should be the first one that takes the first step and removes that from sales, from merchandise. And if they ask why, just say, look, we don't want to have any bad press. So, now that's what I would do. That's what I would do. Anyway, let's move on to our last thing to talk about. And that's a little bit of a review on the Nick Gage, Jon Moxley GCW World Championship match. Death match, that is, from GCW Game Changer Wrestling's Fight Club 2021, or at least Fight Club October edition 2021, from the Showboat, or the showroom in Atlantic City, New Jersey. And I'll say this: if you are not a fan of deathmatch wrestling, you're not a fan of hardcore wrestling, then this may not be the match for you. Even if you're a fan of the redemption story of Nick Gage, even if you're a fan of someone like Jon Moxley, formerly Dean Ambrose, and you've been wondering maybe, what would it be like if they faced each other, if you're ever curious about that, or face someone similar to, each other in a way, then, yeah, if you're a fan, basically those guys individually, and you're always curious about, what it would be like if they face each other or people similar to each other, then then maybe you want to check this match out. I'll put it this way: viewer discretion strongly advised. And in other words, if you're squeamish, there's going to be certain moments in this match that are going to make you go like, kind of really give you a negative reaction, and probably turn your stomach. I'll put it that way. But yeah, this match, I'll tell you, the moment it was announced, I knew. The moment it was announced, and the moment it got announced it was going to be on Fight TV as part of this show, I knew people here on YouTube and other destinations like Dailymotion, Vimeo, wherever, they were going to upload it individually on its own, or they were going to upload the entire card, or they were going to upload all the matches individually. And guess what? That's what happened. A lot of channels did that, not just for this match, but for a lot of matches that took place at Fight Club. Now, as far as the match itself goes, like I said, it's not particularly one of the matches you would want to see if you're very squeamish. I mean, I'll put it this way. Before the announcer can announce Jon Moxley's name, do the full introduction, Nick Gage hits him on the head with a freaking light tube. Or a bunch of light tubes. Which Moxley just shakes off. I mean, yeah, you see the blood instantly pouring off, but Moxley just, he just shakes it off like, oh, is that all you got? Grabs a bunch of light tubes himself, and he smashes it over Nick Gage's head, for like, oh, you want to, basically like, oh, you wanted to hit me with one? Here's your receipt. Here's one back at you. And that's what happened. And the match went crazy from there. It went crazy from there. You had a backdrop over the top rope by Moxley to Gage onto, a barbed wire board with glass set up on top of it. And that broke. Almost looked like Nick Gage screwed up his leg. Thank God he didn't. You had Nick Gage basically do a baseball slide onto light tubes into Moxley when Moxley was on the outside. Moxley had set the light tube. I don't know if Moxley unintentionally made it look like he was going to set the light tubes up for that, but he was grabbing them, and then Nick Gage just slid right into him and smashed him right into Moxley. And if that's not enough, you have him go through the crowd. You have Gage, have a fan hold up a chair to smash Moxley in the head with. Then they get back in the ring, and basically you have the use of barbed wire boards, and these are boards that are not the regular traditional wrestling boards. They're like, like what this desk is made of. And you have Moxley do a X-plex on Gage onto the barbed wire. You have Moxley cut the barbed wire, basically shove the referee out of the way, take the wire cutters from him to cut a piece of the wire, to use it to hammer the side of the head of Gage with a barbed wire, wrapped around his hand, and then he proceeded to press the barbed wire into Gage's head. Then, if that's not enough, Moxley decides, well, Nick, you're not the only one that loves to use a pizza slicer. So he produces a pizza slicer of his own, and he starts to slice the top of Nick Gage's head in the middle of the ring. Then he takes him over to the ropes, and he does it again, and then he licks the blood off the pizza slicer. And it's like, oh, again, if you're squeamish, yeah, these are the kind of moments you got here. So basically, these guys went back and forth. There was a moment when Moxley, he took his shirt off and everything. He's doing, well, before he does that, he's doing like snow angels in the bits of glass that are already there. And then after he does the pizza slicer thing, he takes off his jacket and he decides, okay, I'm going to put him through a stain. He's going to put, basically he takes off his jacket or his vest and he just stares at these two stained glass windows that have a swan and everything on them. Obviously, they were windows that were being replaced or being thrown out because obviously I think the showroom was replacing them with new ones. And GCW is like, hey, can we borrow them for the match, for the main event tonight? And they're like, okay, fine, no problem. And so there you go. That's where those windows obviously came from. And basically what happened is that Moxley lifts up Gage, gets ready to do a Death Valley driver on him, and instead Gage reverses it and spears him into the glass. And that cuts up Moxley back real badly. So Nick Gage is taking control. He hits a DDT, his own version of a paradigm shift and all that. He's taking control. He's beating the hell out of Moxley. And then he gets his pizza slicer out, if you will. Well, he doesn't do that just yet. Like I said, he's beating the hell out of Moxley. He takes a piece of broken light tube, jabs it into the forehead of Jon Moxley. Ooh. And then, if that's not enough, then he produces, or his manager gives him, I think the manager's name is Donovan. He gives him his pizza slicer. He tosses it to him. And then what does he do? He does what Nick Gage does best. He takes Moxley over to the ropes, or Moxley's near the ropes, and starts slicing his head with the pizza cutter. But then he's not done. So he drags Moxley over to the other ropes. Like he did the first spot with the pizza slicer, like right here, like right where my hand is, like right here. But then he goes to the other side of the ring, right here, drags Moxley over to that rope, over to that second rope on that side of the ring. But instead of going the pizza slicer on the head route, he decides he wants to finish the job he almost did in CZW, which they documented on Dark Side of the Ring. And then he puts the pizza slicer in Jon Moxley's mouth, trying to cut his tongue. And I can say this, when I saw Alyx react to that, Alyx was like this. He was like, oh, no. And I don't blame him. I don't blame Alyx. Just Alyx, Dalyxman, for that. Because I would be squeamish too, especially if I was sitting in the audience. But yeah, this thing was brutal. It was like brutal from start to finish. It got to a point, the finish of the match came when it looked like, okay, what happened is the way they were setting this up is Moxley basically, I think he got hit with some barbed wire, landed on barbed wire board. Then he got set up in the corner. Nick Gage takes a pile of light tubes, does a face wash boot move, very similar to Matt Cardona Matt Cardona, if you will, Zack Ryder's, Zack Ryder, formerly Zack Ryder, I should say, Matt Cardona's broski kick, but it's a face wash boot. Basically, it's Japanese terminology, if you will. And he smashes the light tube right into the face, right into the area right here of Jon Moxley. So anyway, it looks like Nick's on the verge of winning back the title, and he goes to the top rope. And he has Moxley up there, and it looks like he's going to try to powerbomb or power drive Moxley onto a stained glass window set up between two chairs. But instead, Moxley's able to, basically reverse it. He's able to stop him, and instead hits a top rope paradigm Death Rider DDT through the glass and onto the mat. But he takes, Moxley this is the one that takes the brunt of that glass. But it's enough, the impact is enough for Mox to claw over and get the 1, 2, 3 over Nick Gage. And all I could say is this, like I said at the beginning, if you're not a fan of deathmatch wrestling, but you are a fan of these men and you wanted to see what it would be like if they faced each other, just prepare yourself. Just prepare yourself for probably one of the, squeamish, one of the sickening, one of the most violent death matches, independent, major, semi-major, whatever you want to call it. And basically what I'm trying to say is, prepare yourself for one of the most sickening, violent, squeamish death matches in any promotion, independent, semi-major, major, you name it, that you're going to see. Because that's what this was. Was it on the level of what you get during CZW's Tournament of Death event that happens every summer? No. But it was close. Very close. And I will say this. You could definitely tell that Moxley missed this. That he misses this kind of a matchups. He misses this kind of match type. This is why he's always cool with doing a lights out match, sometimes depending on who his opponent is, in AEW. Whether it's a lights out, street fight, whatever you want to call it, he's cool with it. He's fine with it. Because that's the environment he made a name for himself in before going to WWE. I mean, heck, when WWE would let him get a little loose and crazy a few times here and there, depending on if the opponent was okay with it, obviously you saw him having, a lot of fun in that, in that scenario, because that's what he thrives in. And they said it best on color commentary, by the way, they had Mick Foley guest commentating on it. They said it best. The guy's a millionaire. He doesn't have to do this. But he thrives for it. It's what he does because this is who he is. This is what he made a reputation for himself on. So, overall, like I said, if you're a fan of deathmatch wrestling, you'll love this. If you're not a fan of deathmatch wrestling, but you're a fan of these guys individually, and you want to check it out, warning, this is going to get violent, and it's going to get violent in a hurry. But anyway, though, guys, that's all I'm going to say on it. I thought it was a good match, and I highly recommend checking it out if you want to. But overall, guys, that's all I'm going to say on some of the wrestling news and stuff here. On my response to just Alyx's thing on Cody Rhodes becoming a heel and being the kind of heel that thinks what he's doing is right, but it's wrong. Also, my thoughts on Tessa Blanchard and being, signing with WoW and that whole situation there. As well as my thoughts, overall review and thoughts on the Nick Gage Moxley death match at GCW Fight Club this past Saturday. Let me know what your thoughts are, though, down below. Comment if you like. Love to hear from each and every one of you. Like the video. Check me out at BW Rose's discussions on all your favorite podcast locations, except for Pandora. As well as check me out at my Teespring store down below. Also, check me out at BW Roses on Patreon. $1 tier gets you a shout-out and recognition. $3 tier gets you a shout-out, recognition, and exclusive content you can't get anywhere else. As well as check me out at BW Roses on Vimeo. So until next time, guys, God bless, take care, I am out. I'll talk to you later.